All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Readers. We're going to take a quick look at the quantum sector. I actually want to cover five. I normally cover four of them: RGTI, QBTS, QUBT, and IONQ. I also want to throw in QSI because I think that one does have an interesting setup right now. But really, that's the common theme across these five. I'm liking the setup that we're seeing, all right? With Rigotti, you can see it. We've been trying. Only one real good attempt in the last couple months, but if we can get over that golden line, I know all-time highs is all the way up there, but get me over this line and I will start to believe all-time highs is coming, all right? When we look at IONQ, it's actually a very similar setup. This one is also trying to escape all the moving averages. This one's also trying to come to its golden line. Again, I know all-time highs is as high as up there. I think it was just that. Yeah, this is the line that's going to matter, and you break this, and I do believe it will do the all-time highs move that we do like, right? When we look at the next two, they actually look pretty similar to themselves. We're looking at QUBT here. You know I like that candle shape right there, right? Not a big crazy percentage, but I like the candle. I like the multiple attempts here trying to get over that 20 moving average, and you know I'm going to be talking about the 50, right? And then when we look at QBTS, actually looks just about the same, right? This one is trying to get over this one as well, still has that 50 moving average above it, and then the golden line up there, right? So to me, the four normal ones that I like, I like that two of them look the same, two of them look the same. It's not quite a full unison, but I do like it when the unison is there, right? Oh, excuse me. QSI was the fifth one. This is the other one I want to look at. So I like it because it is over the biggest candle to the left. It's not over the last green candle, and that's basically the last thing we're going to be looking for, because from there, red, red, red might make it a pretty interesting green, green, green all the way to like a buck 40-ish, give or take, right? So, and then I didn't really talk about it much down here, but pretty much all the lower indicators did look really good. I think it was green over red on just about everything. You can see Rigotti actually isn't, but looks like it should happen tomorrow. There's no such thing as guaranteed, right? But yeah, the lower indicators look good. And really, when you look at NASDAQ doesn't look horrible, right? It actually started off as a kind of ugly day, and we kind of saw that across all of the indices, right? And a lot of it had to do with the jobs number. It sounds like it was the worst revision in history. Actually, the worst back to back in I saw a bunch of different headlines. I really don't know. Hopefully I'm not misstating that, but two job number revisions is never a good thing. You saw them all wick down, but you can see it. They all actually close very, very strong, with the Dow Jones closing the strongest. These are tech stocks, so you know I care about NASDAQ, and hey, I like that. What was a potential down here, all of a sudden we close at the higher side of that doji. We do have green over red on both the MACD, and that's still a very, very healthy 64 right there, right? So overall, NASDAQ is where we want it to be. We saw it again echoed on the S&P 500. This one was almost identical, and we just saw Dow Jones actually look good, right? So to me, RGTI, knowing that the index ocean is nice always makes me a lot more comfortable, especially when we're looking, at, I don't want to necessarily call these like it's quantum is now very much an established sector, right? I think more people talk about AI than they actually talk about quantum, but in a lot of ways they're more than connected. They're almost the same thing, right? You're using AI technology to get these quantum speed, thought, actions, et cetera, right? So yeah, it's just I don't know how loud this sector is going to get. I wish it was just a little bit louder, but yeah, I think as long as AI is here and as long as Nasdaq looks good, we're always going to be looking at this sector and blah blah blah, right? So before we do go any further, though, and I give you more of my thoughts and opinions, what are we going to do? Same thing we always do, right? We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how these things are setting up short term. We have our five moving averages. There are horizontal support and resistance lines that I do draw manually myself. And then when we are done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Hey, really quickly, if you can, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video online. Comment good or bad if you disagree. Look, anything you can do helps so much with these YouTube algorithms. But for real, just being here, giving me your time, oh, I'm so grateful for it, all right? So I'm going to talk about Rigotti and IONQ together because they have a similar setup. And then we'll look at QUBT and QBTS. Those were way too similar and way hard to say. And then we'll wind it out with QSI. I think that's going to be our 1, 2, 3. So looking at Rigotti, look, this has actually been a nice stock, right? Because generally, when you have this much green, 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 a lot of the times at some point you're eventually gonna red on down, right? But it wasn't as good of a year as maybe some might have anticipated, wanted, whatever the word might be. But man, in so many ways, the fact that this one stayed as horizontal, and realistically, this thing went from sub 10 all, let me click somewhere, right? This thing was down here in the eights and the sevens, is now in the 16s. It's actually made a nice 2x move, right? So I say that, with all due respect, right? But yeah, when this run hits, when this volume hits, when you're at the peak, almost 400 million shares, and all of a sudden you're basically 90% of that at the bottom, and so you've given away 90%, and you're basically pushing that 40 instead of the 400, right? You don't stay horizontal, right? So just on that, it is actually very, very nice, right? Look at this 50 moving average do so well. And you hear me say it all the time. These three are really hard to break up, and they should be really hard to lose down, right? So a lot of this has just been riding on that backbone of the 50 moving average, and it kind of seems like that is what happened today, right? Normally, I say bad things happen under the 8 and the 20. When a stock starts to favor a line the way it does, man, you use that line accordingly, right? So I'm really, really liking that bounce right there. Boom, 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 and then again here, right? I obviously like today's candle because what are we doing? We are trying to escape all the moving averages, and really that's been the story for the last 2 months, right? From what, the 15th, 16th of July, we're knocking on the door of the 16th of September, right? So it's been a real battle. Good candle. This is a decent one. Maybe it's not as good as this one, but yeah, couldn't confirm, and you look at that. Not too bad 1, 2, not too bad 1, 2, not too bad 1, 2, and you still can't do it. Whole time the RSI actually hasn't been that bad. I think the issue has been volume, right? On this attempt right here, we were kind of over the line. On this attempt right here, we were kind of over the line, right? But pretty much everything else, we've been under the 50-day line, right? So maybe, let me go to NVIDIA, not MVIDIA, NVIDIA. Maybe as this, one of two things, right? This is kind of what's in the back of my head. If NVIDIA can actually make this decent recovery back over what looked like a bunch of moving averages it just lost, that should help the NASDAQ, that should make things better, and like that's a good thing. Maybe if this doesn't do well, maybe people will stop thinking about AI as much and start coming to the quantum side of it. I don't really know. I'm just trying to guess what it's going to take to bring the volume, all right? This really is the missing thing, and honestly, the bare minimum is like 80 million. We need almost 2x what we got today, right? I'm roughly clicking on the top of this thing. You can see it's kind of the top of this, like, I maybe will go a little lower and call it like 64 million. It's at least 50% more volume than we got today, right? So we really, really need that. Let's just do some simple math and call it 70 million shares across a 7-hour day. We need 10 million shares per hour. If we can get 10 million shares per hour, 20 million shares on that second hour, I think Rigotti has a real good shot to come to at least... I'm going to say at least. Yeah, no, I think that's a decent at least. I think 17.15 is a very, very decent at least. If not, maybe even go for that 18 line tomorrow. I like this setup. I do. MACD isn't quite green over red, but again, I like how this one looks. And I said it in the opening thoughts, I like how the rest of them look, right? When we look at IONQ, this already has the MACD green over red. This has a nice divergence on the green over red RSI. This also has been struggling with the volume, right? So in a lot of ways, I think this already happening has me thinking Rigotti is probably going to make that flip tomorrow and go from there, right? For sure, I see it dropping after hours. I actually really don't care about that, right? There's a reason we wait for market close before making the videos, right? So with Rigotti, like I said, we're looking for the volume. I think my money line is actually volume instead of like the normal dollar that I do, right? If you really want to use a money line, you can use 1680. Break 1680 and I'd be expecting 1715, 1725, if not a retest of that 18, basically 1794. All right. I would say this thing is very bullish as low as 1580. I would start to get worried around 1530. Even falling all the way that low, I think is less than 10% drop, right? So not wildly horrible, but I think Rigotti is at least telling us, hey, as long as you stay over the 50 moving average, it's all good. And you know me, as long as you're over the 8 and the 20, it's all good, right? So I would say use those, together accordingly, right? When we look at IONQ, like I said, it really, really is a lot of the same thoughts. We haven't been using the 50 as well. It's actually a little bit more of a battle on that 50, right? So maybe that much is a little bit different, but really, I'm liking today's candle. I'm liking us trying to get back over all the moving averages. I'm liking it on the unison with Rigotti that we just talked about, right? This is the best volume day, actually, since maybe one of these. And yes, the number is physically higher on these days, but it does actually look like there's less black space between where the white line is and the candle is, and these ones right here, right? Obviously, this was the last really good day, which was about a month ago. The 11th of August was the last day we broke the line, right? So even on today's nice candle close, we didn't have the volume that we needed. I think if we can get around 25 million shares, that should do the job here, right? So a little bit more than 8 million shares. If I want 25 million shares in a 7-hour day, we want around 3.5 to 4, right? That's basically what we're looking for. Obviously, if you have around 8 in the first 2 hours, that's almost half of the full day today, right? So give me the volume, and really this is the next line. If this thing is going to continue, it's going to 45.25 tomorrow, and it's going to retest the golden line. And really, with the 71 RSI, I didn't actually look at the weeklies. This is a solid weekly. IONQ might be setting up nicely for next week. And then let me just go back real quick. Exact same thoughts on Rigotti. This might, worst case, just be setting up for next week. But really, on both of them, we want that golden line test. I think that's kind of the bare bone expectation. And again, I see it dropping after hours. I really, really don't care. All right. This thing is very bullish. Yeah, it's actually here. No, it's a little too low. This thing is very bullish around 42.60. All right, that's about a 5% drop, give or take, from here. It's actually going to be really, really hard to lose 42 because now you've got the 8 and the 50 kind of sitting right there. So I would say this thing is all good over as low as 42. Obviously, like I said, we're hoping for that. And just one more time, just in case you fast forwarded, Nasdaq looks nice, right? Nasdaq has green over red on the MACD. Nasdaq still a healthy 64. Wasn't that long ago, the RSI was as high as an 87, right? So plenty of room from 64 just to 80, let alone maybe even a little bit push, right? And yeah, we are in all-time highs. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing right there, right? So cool. Yeah, that's about it. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Let's check out the next two. QBTS is the first one, and then QUBT is the next one. All right, so I'm moving these to the side basically because they're not over all the moving averages like those first two were, right? But I like this candle once again. I know it's not a big percentage, right? There was literally something today that got, what was it, a 2,000% run like this. I'm telling you, when you see things like this, it makes it really hard to remember that I know it's a small percentage, but that's not bad. And we're here for the setups and the continuations, right? So slow and steady did that famous turtle decent at the minimum, right? So QUBT, again, I know it's a small 6%, but that's a nice candle. It's actually the highest candle in quite a while in terms of trying to get over that 20, right? It hasn't, kind of over it, nicely over it, and better than the last, what, four? Easily the biggest candle to the left. It is now taller than all of them, right? So at this point, it feels like this is going to come up to 1670. That's going to be the real test, right? If you can break 1670, all of a sudden I'm going to start thinking 18 right there, right? That's a little bit more than 10% right there. So MACD is green over red. RSI is green over red. Again, volume has been the sector issue. It just, all of these just continue to only tap it and then continually fail their 50-day line, right? So today was a little bit over it. That's great. Give me a little bit more. That should get us to the 50. Even give me even more, and that should push us on up, right? So golden line is on the yeah, it's all the way up here. I'm gonna change that color. Let's just make this another regular white one. Bump, 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 bump. Golden line is all the way up there, but I do see green, 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 red, 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 green, 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 red, red, red. It's not a bad line channel instead of this first one. There's a lot to like over 18. I'm actually seeing if I want to lower it. Does it hurt us to take it to that? I don't mind that. It's 30-cent difference. That's not bad. I'll take that. We'll lower it just a bit. Again, I do like this. I think the one cool thing... No, I was thinking of another stock. I apologize. This thing is bullish as low as 1566. I really, really don't want to lose 1530. You lose 1530, you're going to lose a fast dollar and come down to 1430. So just keep that in your back pocket. QBTS, basically the exact same thoughts, right? The only reason I didn't capture this one with those first ones, those ones were trying to escape all the moving averages. This one still at least has one of them. And just like the last one, it actually is the 50 moving average as well, right? So there's going to be a battle at 1670 if it can continue from here. I think the one thing I would say, QUBT has been battling the 20 moving average way longer. So to me, this feels like a better escape attempt than QBTS, right? Because we actually have been nowhere near it until this candle hit right here. The one thing I do know is QBTS gets a lot more volume. I actually didn't look at the two, but this one was in the 30. Yeah, this one was at least a 2x on the day. When you zoom out, you can see there's only been a couple little peaks of volume here. Oh man, pudgy fingers, I apologize. QBTS, this one gets much higher volumes and, nearly 300, over 300 million, right? So the volumes are definitely different. That said, they both have a 50 moving average line that they have to get. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this being the first time it's hit the line. And like I said, I like that one a little bit more. But yeah, get me over 1670 and I'm going to start thinking 1750. You break 1750 and I do believe it's gone. Obviously, all-time highs is all the way up there. You break this line and I am thinking all the way up there, right? It is... here's the thing. The answer is it can't lose 1555. There isn't it's still bullish over this line because really, like I said, this is the first good candle, right? Like I still need more before I'm going to actually start believing because really this is the weakest of the four. I think that's something I would say. This one does, QBTS, have the ability to get a lot of volume. So like I think I'm just keeping that in the back of my head and maybe swaying a little bit of my thoughts. But yeah, bluntly speaking, QBTS is the worst of the four because it's actually been more than anything struggling with the 8 moving average. And then this is the first attempt, right? So that said, I don't want you to go below that 1550, 1555, because then you're right back under the 8. And I'm actually going to be expecting you to go all the way down to 1475, right? So I think it is very, very important that this thing comes up to 1670. Maybe if you can at least hold 16, right? That's probably the lowest I'm willing to let this close tomorrow is 16, because realistically the 20 is going to come down. It'll probably come just below 16. So if you can hold 16, you'll at least physically still be over the 20, and all of a sudden I'll start thinking maybe you're doing a little bit better with the line, right? But yeah, you lose 1550 and you're going to drop a quick buck, give or take, all right? And then if this does get over 1670, 1750 is the next expectation, and then from there it's 20, like I said. All right, so let me know your thoughts, let me know your opinions. Even if you disagree, we're gonna wind it out with QSI. I actually did not see this one. This was the last thing I saw on the Discord before hitting record, basically. So QSI, look, I think it's actually a pretty decent transition from QBTS to this one. This one doesn't really look great. This one is definitely struggling with the 8 moving average, right? Because that's a good candle. Those are dojis that don't confirm, and then it's just a quick slap down from the 20 moving average, right? So it's actually not looking good until today's candle. And today's candle definitely has me very interested because we are over the biggest candle to the left, and you just saw me click it, right? We're basically at 50% of this lonely little doji right here, right? So if this can get over 117, I mean, we're basically pennies away. I'll give a little extra penny and call it 18. Look, there is no immediate buy notification. It's just an alert. But yeah, if you can get over that 117, there is a lot of red that might quickly take us to 140 something. That's actually a 20% move right there, right? And even as I zoom out, right, let's just kind of draw that line. This is 19. It's a penny higher, right? But from here to here, all I really see is red, green, red, green, nothing, red. Like it's a really nice fast channel, right? I'll delete this one, but that's a really nice fast channel right there. I think it's gonna start getting very difficult around that 150 point. All right, maybe if this starts to go up and the 4 others start to go up, and we get to see that continuation on NASDAQ, maybe all of that together will help push this thing. But we do have the 3 hardest moving averages sitting in a 15-cent, window right here, right? So I very much like the trade from 120 to 150. That's a beautiful 20% channel right there. After that, it gets tough. But hey, get me over the toughness, get me into 170, and all of a sudden I'm thinking 190 and then some, right? So QSI, I think it's definitely well worth watching tomorrow, but just like I said with QBTS, you do need to keep the real realities that this thing just lost all 5 and died, right? It is not doing well with the 8, and when it does, the 20's right there to slap it down, right? And this is the first good one in a bit, and we're never here to get too excited over a single candle, but given the unison strength that we just talked about, given the NASDAQ, all-time high attempt, it's at least worth watching tomorrow, right? So let me know your thoughts, let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, I appreciate you so much.